Hello, hello. How are you, my darlings? How is everybody today? So glad that you could join us. So, this is the first of our Fireside Chat series. And for those of you who are here that don't know us, my name is Melissa Power. I am a author and mom and full-time job worker. And we thought that it was very important to have this conversation for those of you who work full time and want to have a whole writing career, because you can have it all. It takes some work, but you can have it. And joining us from her car, because her computer decided at the last minute it wasn't going to work, is our darling Jenna O'Malley. Say hi, Jenna.
Hello! I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'm basically proving that you can do the author life from the road full-time too. I'm Jenna O'Malley, your soul writer, author of sci-fi fantasy with dashes of romance and nerdy references, and I'm also a full-time teacher. I work there from home as well, Mondays through Thursdays, and now some Friday mornings and maybe some Saturday nights. I'm hearing rumblings of my hubby's not going to like that. I haven't told him about that yet.
Oops.
So you're working, though, with the government in different ways. I work with kids through government programs. You're working with adults through government programs, though, right?
Sometimes there's not much of a difference, to be honest.
That's a good point, because some of my students never fully grow up. Just saying.
Yeah, so Jenna's a teacher, and I do some teaching-ish. I am a production manager for a digital engagement and virtual event company. So unlike a lot of businesses, COVID was good for us.
Oh, yeah, in some ways for us too, not in others.
When the lockdown happened, our phone started ringing off the hook, and we're a very small team, and we got inundated with a lot of government clients. So I spend a lot of time doing things like this, virtual events, as well as building websites for people, helping them get their businesses online, that sort of thing. But it's a Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. I'm very, very lucky. I have a boss who believes in you work 9 to 5 and that's it. He's also extremely supportive of my writing career. And I know not everybody has that. But in my case, this is the first time I've had it. I've worked a lot of retail, a lot of management, that sort of thing. So, hey, Rita, I'm glad to see you here. And there's Heidi. We do have your question. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just cover a few basic topics that Jenna and I have both dealt with. Okay. And then we will, Heidi sent in a question through my website. And then we're going to do, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. This is a 2-part series. So we are going to try to keep it to the hour, because I know some of you have to run off for the live Q&A for Publish and Thrive.
Very true.
Excuse me. Right. So we're going to go ahead. And the first thing we're going to handle, because we all go through this, how we handle being tired. And we're not just talking about physically tired. We're talking about mentally and emotionally tired as well. So Jenna, why don't you start off with that one?
Well, I'm actually a clinical insomniac. I've been treated for insomnia since I was a teenager. So for me, sometimes it involves medication. And I do emphasize sometimes. That's my last resort. If I'm going to my doctor saying, I need a 10-day run of Ambien, she's like, you've been awake for about a year, haven't you? Yes. I'm at the end. I need a little vacation to catch up and let my body sleep. The other thing is just paying attention to my body, because I sometimes stop listening to its needs. And that's my greatest downfall, I think, and struggle right now, is just listening to my body to say, hey, I need a break.
Yeah, I completely agree. As another, certified insomniac, again, I'm a big proponent of medication. If you need it and your doctor approves it, take it. It's not a weakness. It's not a crutch. It's a helping hand. And sometimes you just can't deal with, with the exhaustion or with just the tired, and it saps your creativity.
Yes.
So much.
That well.
So much. And so you guys are going to hear us throw out a lot of props to Sarah Cannon here. Sarah taught me how to handle that by always having a list of low energy tasks. Okay. So I might schedule that I'm going to write 1,500 words after work, but then I had to deal with customers who were having major issues all day. And by the time 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock rolls around, all I want to do is go to bed. Right. Which when you run your own business, you have to put in the work, obviously, but I don't have to write. I can set up my next newsletter. I can work on some social media posts. I can do those low energy tasks. And one thing that I usually keep is I keep a list at my desk. I keep a list. I don't put it in my planner. I tried that.
Oh, don't put it in that planner.
Totally out of sight, out of mind. But I keep a list of things for the week that I know that I can do. And that's how I deal with it, because I'm always tired. I mean, it's like Renee says here, that she's mentally tired all the time. So you have to listen to your body. You have to give yourself some grace, right? I mean, I know, Jenna, you feel that quite constantly. And it's hard.
Yeah, one of the things I do struggle with, and this is something that hearing people like Sarah Cannon talk about it has made it easier for me to accept that I should start talking about it, and it is therefore going to affect the kind of content I'm putting out in some of the series on my channel in the next couple of weeks to reflect on that. But I think for me, it was also just accepting, it's not selfish. It's not self-centered. It's not being needy for me to say, I'm exhausted from what I do, and there's an imbalance.
Yes.
And a lot of that comes from being taught to be submissive, subservient, and a people pleaser by my family growing up, unfortunately. So.
And I think that as women, we do get that a lot, and not putting down any guys here, because, but it is a North American cultural thing for women to always be go, go, go and take care of everybody. And then we have hustle culture, which is exceedingly, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, it's exceedingly toxic.
It's okay to hustle.
Well, you gotta have side hustle, right? And no, you don't. Even if you're just the type of person who writes for their own pleasure, and you need to figure out, how do I write because I want to, and still do my job, still take care of the kids, still get the car out for an oil change. How do I take care of everything and everybody that I have responsibility for? And I'm exhausted to top it all off. Totally exhausted, and I think that comes down to our next point of setting realistic expectations for yourself.
That
it's hard. It's hard. We want to do it all, right?
Yeah, that's where I was going with the balance. It's like, how can I be, because it comes down to knowing the difference between the hats you have to wear and the spoons you have available. If you know those two analogies, hand in hand, we are people of many hats. For example, I'm an author, I'm a teacher, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm a cat mom, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a third thing, right? Some days I can't do all if my available ability to wear them is shorter than the number of hats taking my demands. And that caught up with me this summer, hard. Yeah. So that's where I think the whole pivot and hustle culture needs to become more reflective, so you don't burn out.
Completely agree. Because, and I mean, I'm seeing in the comments here that a lot of people are saying that they agree that hustle culture is toxic. And I mean, there's nothing wrong with having a hustle. There's nothing wrong with having a side hustle, but it's about realistic expectations. It's about saying to yourself, I know I can get X done, so Y can go on my list. And if I get it done, it's gravy. right? But it's all about, it's when work is hard on the brain, it stops your creativity. If you live with things like I do, like with chronic pain and chronic insomnia, that makes it twice as hard. And we all seem to have this need to power through it because that's what society tells us that we have to do. And I mean, while there is a need to power through it, there's a line, right? There's a line. I see Jenna like, yeah, there is a line.
This makes me think of a conversation my husband was having recently with his employer. He delivers Christmas to people daily as part of being for the Zon's third-party distribution. And unfortunately, it is a system where the best drivers get punished with the hardest routes. And if they mess up, they're made examples of the hardest. And it's like that toxicity is starting to spread into other areas of those people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to be that way in hustle culture to reflect it, do we?
And I don't think we do. I mean, our writing, we do it because we're called to do it. If you're anything like me, you write to shut the voices up in your head.
Yes, exactly the topic of the vlog I'm putting out next week. Exactly.
Right. Shut the voices up. But at the same time, I know that me personally, if I go for long periods of time without writing, I become almost impossible to live with. I mean, my son grew up with the whole, oh my God, Mom, when was the last time you wrote? Right? Because I get cranky, I get short, I'm just not myself. And I think that it's something that we're pushed to turn into a business and make money for and this sort of thing. And you don't have to do that unless it's part of your dreams.
This kind of reminds me of something a teacher friend of mine mentioned. She said, it feels like I went from high school to college to teaching, and I never took a moment to get away from that bell to bell, it rules my life mindset. Yeah. I wonder if that's true for some people, because in some ways, I hate to admit this is the purpose of industrial revolution based education systems, is to train people to be reliable employees.
Well, and I totally agree. It's like, I've done my share call center work. And, you know, when I would first start a call center job, I would fall asleep hearing that ding of the next call coming in.
Or for you fast food workers, the machines going off with their timers. Yes.
It's Pavlov's dog, you know, but it's funny. Like, Mama Maggie here saying the economy is pushing us to be needing these extra jobs, you know.
Yes.
And that kind of, it really goes against, I think, our need to have it be a dream. It's like, okay, you can't have this be a dream anymore. You got to make it a business. You got to make money from it. And while that is all well and good, then we lose sight of why we started doing it in the first place. And I think that's, I mean, we can't get those boundaries in there, you know. And the boundaries are so important, and they're so hard, especially when you're a mom, or even if you're a pet mom, you know, and like a lot of us are perfectionists. A lot of us are perfectionists. I know I am. And that kind of goes along with the whole people pleasing thing, you know.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
When I was in college, we were told as teachers, don't smile until Christmas for a reason. Set a hard boundary first day of school and act like the mean teacher so they won't take advantage of you.
Oh, dear God.
And it's like, are we? No, I have a lot of problems with that. But that's what our professors are telling us in regards to setting boundaries. And I'm like, you know, in a way they have a point, because if someone gets used to your boundaries being fluid in their advantage, the second you admit, hey, I'm tired of being taken advantage of, and therefore I am pivoting to change that, some people get mad. Well, sorry. Those people were not part of your group. They were not truly there to support you, is what I've also found out. And I mean, that's true when you leave high school, when you leave another job, when you move cities. That's kind of true regardless. You see who your real friends are and who your real supports are.
And this is it. And it's funny that you mentioned about moving cities, because when my father got sick, I moved provinces so I could come spend time with him. And then when he passed, I moved in with my mother. Now, I grew up here in Nova Scotia, but I had spent the previous 5 years in New Brunswick, and that's where all of my friends are. And that's where, my life was. And I found out who my real friends were. They were the ones that helped me still from a distance, because, COVID hit right after I passed. But they, they're checking in, and still 2.5 years later, they're still checking in with me. They're still like, oh my God, I miss you so much. That is your community. The people who are constantly, checking on you, that have that need for you to succeed, and no jealousy around it.
That's the key.
And it's become harder, I think, since the pandemic, where a lot of people pivoted to working from home.
Yeah. And just, I mean, even working from home in and of itself, we all kind of had to learn new routines, new habits, and that in and of itself was hard. But it really pushed you to realize who you worked with and who you were comfortable with and not, too.
Well, and this is the thing. I mean, when I started working for the company I work for now, shortly after my dad passed, and they've always been remote. They've been remote for 20 some years. So, but my mom works for the same company. So she's really my only coworker that I'm with. Right. And we share an office and this sort of thing, but she only works part-time. So, when I take my writing career into consideration with working from home, we have downtime at my job, because we have seasons, mostly because of the government and their funding and how they do, their year end is, the end of March, and so we have summers are quiet for us because everybody's on vacation in the government and this sort of thing. Those are the times when I find I could squeeze in some writing, but I don't usually write during the day, because what if I get into the flow and then my boss needs me, right? But that's where it comes, right? And so again, with the lists, right? I know Sarah would approve. I have a list of things to do during the workday. So these are all things that I can drop in the middle of the task. Things like research, things like reading a craft book, okay? Doing some editing, doing my backup, social media posting, this sort of thing. I think that is really important, to have these quick, easy tasks that you can knock off a bunch of them during the day if you have the opportunity. I know not everybody works from home, and I know not everybody has that opportunity. I am just insanely lucky to have that. But working from home, a lot of people, I think, are finding that they're able to free up more time. Like, you can go start a load of laundry in between calls or in between meetings or whatever it is that you happen to do. And that would free up some time on the back end, because, hey, I got all of my laundry done, like it ever ends. I got all my laundry done by Thursday, so that this weekend I'm not having to do 6 loads of laundry on all of the days Saturday, right?
And to counter that, and this is something my family had to learn when I started working from home, just because I'm home all day does not mean you can ask me to do stuff all day either.
Yes. It's like owning your own business. It's like everybody thinks that you're available whenever. No.
If that's the case, I'll never get any work done.
Right.
So for me, blocking time out to do the big chores, like mowing the lawn, that I know is going to take me an hour, I do put that in my schedulers, in my planner sometimes. So if it is a bigger chore that can't go on that list.
Yeah. And, if you're lucky enough like me that you have the type of job where you can basically make your own schedule. For me, for instance, if I need to schedule a doctor's appointment, or even like I have to go for regular massages to help my tremors, excuse me, and the only appointment I can get is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I know I can go because I'll just put in a little, either I'm very big on being at my desk early. I put in a lot of hour, like I'll put in an hour or half an hour before 9 o'clock. So I don't feel bad. My boss is just like, I really don't care. So long as you get everything done. If you need to take off in the middle of the day, it's like this past week when I was down with COVID, my boss put me to bed on Thursday.
And that's where you should have been. And I know that's better.
I know that's where it should have been. And something that's a really good segue into another point, that put those boundaries in. If you work from home, you are not there to work 24/7. You shouldn't be at your desk working on stuff at 8 p.m.
Don't be me.
Don't be Jenna, right? Don't be Jenna. Renee says, yes, Sarah put her to bed when she had COVID, right? My boss was all like, I was like, you sound tired. I said, I'm exhausted. Well, then go to bed, and not all of us have that. And I'm so grateful for Mike. I love him like a brother, and I'm so freaking grateful for him. But put those boundaries in. Like, you're not, especially if you're on salary. You're on salary for 40 hours a week. Don't
work over your 40.
Of you have dreams that you need to fulfill. You want a writing career, you've got to have the time to do the work. And we work 5 days a week, and then we're like, woohoo, weekend. How much can I slam into 48 hours? That's not fair.
Don't be me. I'm so tired of being called a machine. Oh. That's what it gets you called. It doesn't get you respect. It gets called you things like, and not calling out anyone who may have called me this over the last year. I'm just saying it's a little dehumanizing for people to acknowledge all of your workaholicism as being a robot and a machine.
And this is the thing. And if you do that, then it becomes expected of you.
Yes, that's the other side of the coin.
And I know that I've fallen into that where I'm just going to toot my own horn. I'm good at what I do. I am extremely good at what I do. And I have been told I'm too good at what I do, because then people expect me to do more. And that's okay.
You risk getting punished.
Exactly. But I put in some very healthy boundaries when I first came to work for this company. I put in hey, I have a writing career, and this is like, I can't, like, there's been a few times that, yes, I've had to work overtime. There was just no getting around it. But if I was working until 7 o'clock at night, my boss gave me the next day off. Again, so lucky, right? Not everybody gets that. But if we work our butts off when we have a really big event, and then it's a 2 or 3 day event and it exhausts us, we're all getting Friday off. Everybody's taking Friday off because my boss.
It works to their advantage too.
Well, this is it. I'm lucky enough that I have a boss that realizes that we need to have our mental health in order, and we're rested and everything else to do our jobs effectively, but this is the thing. When you're working from home, it's almost like you feel like you always have to be on.
And balancing that is hard. So you might have to rearrange your workspace. I'm not going to be able to wait until we move to do that. I realized that this week. I'm going to have to rearrange something to where I'm not literally living room, dining room, office, bedroom is all within 20 feet of each other because of how tiny our apartment is. So for me, I'm going to have to pivot and figure that out. But also, even the tiniest details of something in your environment can be causing a bad balance. Like think about it. Most schools don't have red walls for a reason. If you have aggressively colored walls in your house, you might want to hang a tapestry in your work corner to help lighten it up and lighten your mood.
Absolutely. No, completely agree. I actually just started doing some filming this morning that I'm going to be rearranging my office space, because this is the room where I spent most of my time.
Yeah.
It is a small room that I share with my mother and has no windows.
Oh, I didn't realize you guys didn't have windows. That would be horrible on my mental health.
Yeah, but I have tried to cozy it up. But, you know, the thing is that I have a very specific end of my workday routine that involves putting away all of my work papers and everything, and not just taking them off my desk, but they go way the heck up here on top of this shelf I've got over here. They get out of my sight.
So that way you are completely turned off from it, out of sight.
And it's like flicking the switch, let me tell you. And then out comes my writing stuff. The only thing that I carry over is I almost always have a candle lit on my desk.
Oh.
Right? Sometimes if I'm feeling particularly like I'm having a hard time getting out of work mindset into creative mindset, I'll blow out the candle on my desk and I'll light a different scent.
Another thing that really helps me is just finding a balance between my spiritual and my refill space versus my workspace. Yeah, I want like my candles. I want certain things near my desk, but I don't want them anywhere else in the house, I realized. Like, I want a different scent elsewhere for the house than at my desk, if that makes sense.
I have different scents that I use at my desk than I do in my bedroom, because my bedroom is my sanctuary.
There you go.
That is where I go to unwind. I do have a television set in there. My doctor freaked when I told him this, but you have to understand, my idea of having my television set on is listening to music on YouTube or watching a movie that I'm half paying attention to while I read or something. But I don't generally work. Even with my writing, I don't do any of my 9-to-5 job in my room, and I very rarely do writing work in there. I will sometimes, if I'm having a bad pain day or something like that, I will take my planners and stuff in there and make a little nest and put a movie on, and you know, that's my wind down. That's where my peace is in that room. But at the same time, it's that whole switch over from business brain to creative brain that I think it's very important if you work from home and if you write in the same space that you work, that you need to have a really set end of workday routine. And it's got to be like a switch. It's got to be something that cuts you off from the rest, like from your work mind, right? And I do find that having that hard routine and getting all of my work stuff out of my sight. I can't turn my head. I mean, I can see that there's 2 binders up here. They're not work binders. They're empty binders that I put my work papers in between so that I can't see them. So it's out of my mind. I turn my Skype off, take it right off my desktop.
Some people would just stuff it in like a drawer. Like for me, when I'm done with certain tasks for work, I have a drawer that I stick the paperwork related to it in.
Yep.
And now part of it is those are my students whom have the hardest lives is why. Like, these are my students whom they themselves are on parole. They themselves are just out of the hospital. They themselves are grieving a parent or whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's part of the reason why once I'm done dealing with any of the document tracking there, I need to physically lock all of it away, take all the digital files, securely lock them away for confidentiality purposes, yes. But also it's an emotional thing because some of the things they're not my babies, but
they are.
Everyone in the audience will understand some of the things my babies are going through.
When I was living in New Brunswick, I was a child and youth care worker.
Yeah.
And that I found really difficult as well. That was where I started to develop my shut off routine. Was that because it was a very emotional job. And then when I came here, I went to work in the funeral industry.
Oh my goodness. That's
really,
harder.
It was even harder, but I enjoyed it because I was able to be there for people on the worst day of their lives and help them get through it. But that's where I had to have that shut off so that I could get into my creative mind, and when you work from home, there's those distractions. There's those distractions that even at the end of the day at 5:00, and you're sitting back down at your computer after supper, and at 6:30 or 7:00, that's why it's so important to shut off your Skype and not to have your business email accessible on your computer. Heck, if you can use a different computer, do it. If you have a laptop that's separate from your work computer, maybe write on your laptop so that I have a laptop that I take with me when I travel. There is nothing work related on that. Absolutely nothing. I have stripped it of all things work related. And that's, I think, is extremely important. It all comes down to having that barrier.
Yes.
It all comes down to having that barrier.
It's the very reason why I told my boss I absolutely refuse to put my work email and my work messenger on my phone.
Yep, I don't either.
I refuse.
The company has Skype on their phone. I do not.
Everybody else has their work Gmails on their phone. And I said, I'm not going to do it. And you cannot force me because you don't pay that bill.
Yeah, exactly.
And my boss backed off fast. And I said, it is a mental health barrier. Because otherwise, you will be out. They already have me 45 to 55 hours a week, and I'm only contracted 40.
Oh, girl.
That's how short-staffed we are. And I said, you're getting this much more over that 45 to 50.
And that's another thing.
Because I can't.
We're so understaffed. Honey, that's not your problem.
I saw a video somewhere on Facebook. I forget who it was, but the wording for again something like that was, yes, I understand, and I'm willing to help you temporarily, but it is not my responsibility to hire and fire accordingly to fix the problem.
That was the woman that always ends her videos with Toodaloo. Is that who that was?
I'm not sure.
I love her. I wish I had her name and stuff so I could give it to everybody, but
yeah,
she takes those things from that, from the business end of your life and makes them funny, but still extremely relatable. And
the wording will make your boss mad, but there's nothing they can do.
What are they going to do? Fire you? No, they're already understaffed.
Exactly. And I actually have worked with people. We're talking like I worked in a call center doing insurance claims to pay the bills in college, and they would literally, if they wouldn't write you up, they would just fire you. 2 days later, you could walk in and get rehired for another contract.
Yeah. Call centers are such a toxic environment. I've done a lot of call centers. I've only ever done one that was not toxic, and that was Assurian. They were amazing.
Assurian's like one of the best ones to get.
I worked at Assurian, and the only reason I left was because after my car accident, I couldn't sit to a desk, and I didn't want to screw my teeth. I was in like the high end, like the last call that ticked off customers get to.
Tier 2, tier 3, yeah.
So I didn't want, they were holding that job for me, and we were such a small team, and I was like, this is not fair. Mm-hmm. And they were an amazing place to work. If they thought you were stressing out, the call center manager would haul you off the phone and take you into the break room and play DDR with you, or something on, some sort of computer, some sort of video game or something. It was really amazing. So, but not all of us work from home. And I think Jenna has frozen on us here. Looks like that she's frozen. So, there she is.
Did you get me back? Yes. Yay.
So we were just,
Yay.
I was just switching over to talking about working outside the home. This will be our last topic. Yeah. And then we'll take some questions and stuff. So,
obviously it's doable to be a guest in StreamYard. Just saying, it's possible to do this from the road.
Yeah. And I mean, I know writers that live the van life. And
that's true.
And that they travel around and they, but those are people who do writing for full-time jobs. But I mean, there's a lot of people that, I mean, I did it for years. This is the first job that I've ever had where I've worked from home outside of when I was in the financial industry as an investor, because that was basically my own business. But this whole working outside the house thing, it can make it even more difficult.
Yeah.
And but there's also advantages.
There are. Like
your commute.
I miss my commute and sometimes I don't. Because when I was teaching in a brick and mortar school, I was teaching in the Eastern Panhandle of West Virginia, an hour away one way. So my commute was 2.5 hours round trip.
Yep.
I was getting up at 4 a.m. to write for an hour to wake myself up and then get dressed, drive for an hour, set up my classroom, do my morning meeting with my principal, teach a full day, stay after for whatever requirements to stay after I had to stay after for, plus another 45 minutes to catch up on stuff. Because at my school, you were lucky if you got your planning periods to yourself to actually do planning or grading. Anywho, drive home, clean house, work my second job because I had a job outside the home and then a part-time job inside the home. Yeah. Working outside the home, use that commute to your advantage. Brainstorm. Listen to music.
Podcasts.
Listen to documentaries. Yes.
Before my father passed away and I was working in the funeral industry, it was in a call center. We were answering service for funeral homes all over North America. And even though the actual, like, had I driven by car, the actual commute would have been like 15 minutes over the bridge from one city into the other, I had to take 2 buses and it took me over an hour. I lived downtown in the city and I wasn't paying for parking and I didn't need to anyway, because the bus stopped right outside my place. So I would listen to Joanne Penn a lot.
Yes, good choice.
Going back and forth. And I really found that helped. Or I would read craft books. I'm one of these people that I couldn't write on the bus because it would make me nauseous, but I could read, strangely enough. But podcasts were my go-to. I know a lot of people who listen to audiobooks, whether it's for pleasure or whether it's a craft book, on their commute. So there's that advantage because you're a captive audience. Like you can't do anything else. Right.
And that's a moment where YouTube can work to your advantage. You can do something like listen to this, or literally History Channel, Timeline Documentary, Discovery Channel. They all have channels on YouTube these days.
Yeah.
And all of their really good content from the early teens and the late 1990s that they've really started getting good at making their cinematography what it is today. That's all free now on YouTube, guys.
Right.
So if you need to do research, there's like almost zero excuse not to find time to take tiny advantages of, I have a commute. Can I listen to this 20-minute documentary on a topic I need to know more about?
Right. Now, let's take a minute and address this. Renee says, I used to sing at the top of my lungs. Okay, funny and fun, but let's just take a minute and talk about this. That is so good for your mental health. So good, especially if you're going to a job that you don't particularly like.
And the good thing about...
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I'm sorry. I lost signal there for a second. That was me. I'm sorry.
Okay, no worries. I was just saying that, like, it's so good for your mental health that it can put you in the right mindset if you're going to a job that you don't particularly care for, that you're just using to pay the bills. And then it's a celebration on the way home. So that by the time you hit home, you've left that job behind and you are happy, and you're, even if, whether you're opera quality singer, you sing like a crow, it is so good for your mental health. So, or talking your plot out or your dialogue, or if you're alone in the car, take advantage
Treat
of
it like the shower. Yep.
Renee says, I equate it to laughing. Absolutely. It lightens your mood. It lifts you. And
well, another thing about music, if you see, don't do it on the bus. Well,
weird.
I don't know. If you're a good singer, and you do it on the bus, it might make you some money on the way to work and pay for your bus fare for a day or two. Anyway, on the other hand, do yourselves a favor later this evening when you're bored and you have a free moment to Google what the brain looks like when you're looking at or listening to music. There are MRI images of the brain when people listen to different types of music. And the commonality is music is the one thing that lights your brain up the most to be able to create and problem solve. It's why teachers are encouraged to let kids listen to music. Mind you, there are certain types that work better than others. If lyrics are distracting, don't listen to them. But that's why things like binaural beats are so big. Pomodoro study sprint music timers are getting huge in our AuthorTube community for a reason. So it's your brain craving it.
Well, and this is the thing. I mean, like, and nothing is the same for anybody. Like, I love binaural beats. Now, I know people who binaural beats literally will set them on edge. Because their brain
some ways, yes.
Everybody's brain's wired differently, right? You have
and music is a frequency.
This is it. And this is why I always mute during my sprints, so that people can listen to what they need to listen to. And I'm not knocking anybody that plays music during their sprints, because it works for them and it works for the people who go to their sprints. Fantastic. I have not found anything that works because it seems like the people coming to my sprints, we're all nuts anyway, and we like our own thing, right? So, I mean, it all boils down to routines that work for you, right?
And letting routines go if they no longer work, because I will admit, I thought I could keep a lot of my life routines switching from a brick and mortar school to a click virtual school.
Yeah.
No, especially considering some of my students are in Brazil an hour or two ahead of me, or in the Ukraine and France half a day ahead of me. I can't be that way. Some of my routines don't work.
No. And if you switch jobs or something like that, things are going to change.
Correct.
If you get a new baby in the family or a new pet or something, you have to give yourself the grace to be flexible. And like when I started out with my writing routines, I was trying to model my routines after Sarah's, because I admire her so much. And that I was like, ooh, that's a really good idea. I'm going to implement that and it's going to work for me and it's going to be awesome. Hell no. Because first of all, I don't write full time. Second of all, I'm not Sarah, right?
Well,
I'm me. And that's why it's so important to get to figure out what works for you and know that you're going to make mistakes.
Exactly. And one thing I appreciated about Sarah's routines was, as a teacher, I knew some of them, but not outside of a classroom context.
Yeah.
Like a lot of what she has implemented, it's like, wait a minute, that reminds me of blank thing I used to do with my kids. Why am I not doing it for me?
Exactly. And that actually brings us into the question and answer portion.
Oh, nice segue.
And guys, I am loving this.
Yes.
I am loving this. This has been amazing. And I thank you all for being here. It's love y'all to death. Looking forward to doing this on a regular basis.
Yes, part 2 is going to be ahead. If you want to add in some questions as we're wrapping up, go ahead and pop them in the chat now. Sarah's Publish and Thrive, though, starts in 15 minutes.
Yeah, so we're going to start
to
doing some questions here.
And the next one is, I'm sorry, hon. The next one, I'm going to send Melissa the link to put the link in the description box tonight. I can't do that because my computer won't let me do it. I meant to do it this morning. But as soon as I'm where I need to be at the end of the day before I go to my gem show tomorrow, I'm going to go see. I'll get to the link for the next one. And that's what, September 10th?
September 10th. We're going to do it at the same time of day. And it's going to be part 2 of this conversation. So in the description here is a link to my website, Jenna's website. There's also a direct link to the question form. So if you wanted to pop some questions in for part 2, also as well, you can go in there. Jenna and I are having a little giveaway at the end of this 2-part series. All of the deets are on my website. If you don't want to ask a question, you can still fill out the same form and get entered into the draw to win a free book from an ebook from either myself or Jenna.
And this is the last giveaway I'm doing before my books are depublished to be republished for my rebrand. So this is the last chance you will have to get my first book as part of a giveaway in its current form before it's rebranded.
Fantastic. So I've got this question here. As Jenna said, if you guys have questions, pop them into the chat. But I have this question here that Heidi sent in. Thank you, Heidi. That was awesome. I love seeing the little form come in on my email. So Heidi says, I've stayed at home for a couple of years now and will start working full-time in a couple of weeks. Melanie, you can definitely relate to this, I think.
Yeah.
How do you thrive as both an author and an expert at work when you live alone? Well, Melanie, I know you don't live alone, but when you live alone and are in charge of everything yourself, your health, the pets, the house, how do you get the momentum from being good at your job to fuel author productiveness and vice versa, instead of failing at one and then letting it influence the other? I need to write to survive, but I also need money to do it. We hear you. I can definitely relate to this question because I did this for so long. First as a single mom, and then when my son moved out as just a single person who was responsible for everything from paying the rent to getting the car in for an oil change. And it used to frustrate me so bad. And it did impact my productivity. This was before I found out about Sarah. This was before I found HB90.
Agreed.
Right? This was before I found out that I can have both.
Yeah.
It comes down to routines and boundaries.
Mindset.
That's what it is. Finding out the routines that work for you, setting those boundaries around your work, knowing what your dreams are, knowing what you need to do to get there. It's like, for those of you who have taken HB90, you've gone through this in the workbook. You go through this in the workbook probably every quarter. I know I do. That here's what I want to do, and here's what I have to do to get there. Everything else is superfluous, and I'm not doing it. Right? And things like getting the car in for repair or for an oil change. What I do even now, I have a standing appointment.
There you go.
It's in the spring, tire change, oil change. In the fall, tire change, oil change. It is in my Google Calendar. It's there. It's set in stone. The only thing that can stop me is a snowstorm.
Exactly. It's going to be life and weather that stops you then. And in some ways, if you're in a rural area, I know Mama Maggie kind of is as well, and Angie and others in our community kind of are more rural-esque, your local mechanic gets to expect you around those times. And if you don't show up,
they're calling you.
And they know you're overdue, and they run into you somewhere, or your kid sees, you'll find out. And that is kind of like the universe, if you want to label it this, the world echoing back a routine to you then. Because I saw Heidi said, I totally suck at routines and boundaries. This is something I used to tell my students. And I didn't believe it, honestly, until recently. And I hate to say I was one of those teachers, but spelling is not just you writing your words to the universe. It's you telling the universe how you expect to be treated and how you want to be treated. So for me, saying I am never going to be a best-selling author, I changed that the other day. Some of you saw the silliest reel I put up on my Instagram.
It was awesome.
It's the silliest thing I have ever put on the internet by far. But it was me breaking that. Ever since, I have been telling myself, you are going to be a best-selling author one day. Before I put that silly, weird reel out, my thought was, yeah, it'll happen like it happened to J.K. Rowling. I'm going to randomly get found by luck. If that's what I'm putting out into the world, that's what it's going to give me.
Yeah. And random is never random. But, never
truly.
Mama Maggie had said here, joys of rural life, you learn to do a lot of stuff yourself. That's true. Yes. But I mean, I grew up edge of nowhere, Nova Scotia, where you had to get in the car and drive 15 minutes to get a carton of milk. Or in our case, a bag of milk.
That's right, bags of milk.
It's a Canadian thing, right, Renee? But one thing about growing up rural is it teaches you how to plan these things.
Yes.
Like for instance, when, there is a storm coming, there's a snowstorm coming, you need to plan for that. You need to plan for, if you live rural and you have to take the car out to get serviced, you're not just taking the car out to get serviced, you're picking up groceries. You're going to Costco, right? You're going to Costco, you're going to the bookstore, you're stopping at, in their case, Canadian Tire to make sure that you've got, batteries and stuff. And I think that that's where it comes down to planning so that you optimize the time that you have so that you have you're freeing up time for writing. Instead of scattering off in 15 different directions, I'm going to take 4 hours today and I'm going to get stuff done.
And in case my connection dies, I just wanted to add right quick, Becca Symes, rating system. Yes. Rank them. What is your priority? Go with what's at top. If it's not in your top 5 or your top 10, maybe you can't work on it right now.
This is it. This is definitely it. And then you're also doing that, like, for those of you who have taken HB90, it's the whole, like, how important is this to my dream? Is this going to move me forward? Mm-hmm. Right? Is this going to move me forward? Or am I procrastinating or self-sabotaging? Or Clifton Strengths, Renee says, I don't think I've ever done the Clifton Strengths. And Renee, we were talking about bagged milk. Jenna keeps, poor Jenna keeps freezing here. But, it's about knowing yourself and knowing what works for you. But it's also not being afraid to try something new, right? This is the big thing. So, like, Mama Maggie here saying this morning, feed store order pickup, grocery order, coffee shop, all before 9 a.m. means leaving the house at 6 a.m. But then you've still got your whole day, right? I'm a very big proponent of getting all that crap done before anybody is even like thinking about, going and picking up my groceries after supper on a Friday evening means I don't have to do it Saturday morning. Unfortunately, it looks like we just lost Jenna. She was working, like I said, working off Wi-Fi in her car. So that is okay. So we are going to start wrapping up. I want to know, does anybody have any questions about what we covered? Any comments? Not out in Western Canada for bagged milk. It's funny because I grew up thinking that bagged milk was just an East Coast thing. But apparently Americans find us really funny about putting our milk in bags. But if you did not cut your finger sawing off the corner of a bag of milk with a steak knife, are you even Canadian? Right? That's the big joke. But my darlings, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with us. It's unfortunate that we lost Jenna, but I will have that link up in the description of this video as soon as Jenna gives it to me. And so feel free to send in those questions, or even if like, hey, this is something I do that works for me. Could we talk about it? We are going to be carrying on with some other topics for people who work full-time and have a writing career. So please feel free to send in suggestions through that same form for topics that you would like us to cover. And we had so much fun. Scissors, right, Renee? I mean, but I'm sure at some point you've had to use a steak knife. It's a Canadian thing. So I'm not going to keep you all any longer. I want you guys to, those of you who have to go do P&T, get up, move around, get a drink. I will mom you to death if you don't go do that, okay? Love you all so much. Thank you for joining us. And we will definitely see you on September the 10th. And I'll see you all in my sprints tomorrow. Back with the 3-hour sprints tomorrow. We will see you then. Take care, everybody. Ugh.